morning, we come on the air with breaking news. President Biden, in his final hours, his final morning in office, has issued several high-profile pardons.
Among those pardoned this morning, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and the members and staff who served on the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol, including Liz Cheney.
And police officers who have spoken out as well from the Capitol Police. Let's go right to Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. This just broke 10 minutes ago. Peter, what do you know?
Savannah, as NBC News first reported, President Biden, even yesterday, I'm told, was very seriously considering using this extraordinary presidential power to preemptively pardon some individuals. And this morning, as we are reporting, it is clear that he has decided to do just that in these final hours in office to guard against any potential revenge by the incoming Trump administration, by the incoming President Trump. President Biden just announcing, as you note, that he is pardoning Dr. Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, and members of the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol. That includes Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Adam Kinzinger, among others, as well as Capitol and D.C. police who testified before that committee. I want to share with you part of what the president writes. He says, in part, our nation relies on dedicated, selfless public servants every day. They are the lifeblood of our democracy. Yet alarmingly, he adds, public servants have been subjected to ongoing threats and intimidation for faithfully discharging their duties. Notably,
I think that this is quite possibly not only the worst president of all time, but one of the most corrupt administrations that we've seen, at least in my lifetime. There's no way that you can continue to justify that we should have faith in our justice system as far as what was happening under the Biden administration, because he's done some unprecedented things that I have not ever seen. I've never seen. First of all, my first time seeing somebody to preemptively pardon somebody for something that they not even investigated for was when he did it for Hunter Biden. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So I already think that you're dirty, not only from what you did in this administration, but also pardoning your son for ties that could possibly link him to something I think also has your fingerprints all over it, because it's impossible for you to tell me that you're a 50-year servant, public servant, meaning that you were being paid by the taxpayers, but then at the same time, it's impossible for me to believe that this guy who's had ties to and fingerprints in China and Ukraine, reportedly, and all of these other places that we continue to fund, or we continued to fund as a part of your administration with public tax dollars. And it's hard for me to believe that you didn't preemptively pardon him for things that he wasn't even charged for, in addition to whatever it was that he was found guilty for. Okay, so we knew your son was never going to go to jail, and you finessed us and all of this other stuff, right? But then on top of that, we also have you using these exact same powers that, again, most of us have never seen before or heard before, and we didn't even know that this was possible. We see you using this exact same strategy for Dr. Fauci, who obviously most of us, especially the people on the conservative side, have a problem with, and that we believe that we were finessed with this whole pandemic situation, not to mention a jab that was thrown in there on top of it. So, it speaks of corruption. It speaks of no confidence that people will be held accountable. And one of the reasons that he feels comfortable doing this, and that he's doing it preemptively, is because they know that they did that against Trump, and basically trying to have some form of election interference to prevent him from becoming president of the United States again.
So what you have there is a situation where you have this preemptive pardon given by President Biden, which was issued in between 11:30 a.m. and almost 20 minutes till to go in effect, 20 minutes, at least no later than 20 minutes till, I believe, midnight. Not midnight, but afternoon, 12 p.m. Because at 12 p.m. or noon is when President Joe Biden's term expired. So all this was set into effect to pardon all of these people around that time as he was going out the door. And President Trump didn't realize that But a lot of people are going to have different opinions and thoughts on this. A lot of people don't even know about this. And so this is one reason why I'm sharing this video. And so, I'll just say this. Hey, I get it. That's your son. You want to pardon Hunter Biden when you said you wasn't going to pardon him, and you pardoned him, and you said you will, how Democrats, as Stephen A. Smith says, say they are the paragons of virtue, but then turn around and doing the same things and the main things that they accuse their the opposite side of doing. Okay, but that's all fine and dandy. That's your son. I get it. But then take it a few steps further. Even though his son Hunter was convicted on a gun charge and a tax charge with the IRS, never mind that. That's one thing. That's your son. Okay, I understand. Trump probably would have did it for his son too. Okay, so I get it. But you pardon Dr. Fauci? Fauci? You pardon General Mark Milley, who served under President Trump in Trump's first term, and himself made a call to China and warned them that he would let them know if Trump tried to attack or launch some type of missile or some type of attack, offensive or retaliation attack, something along those lines. But just to let China know when Trump was getting ready to do something, that was the basis on that whole deal, because that was treasonous in itself and is punishable by or worthy of death. But I don't know what Trump was going to do with that. A lot of people thought in Trump's first term, when he was going to go after Hillary Clinton, and he said no, that wouldn't be good for the country, and he didn't do that. But when Biden got in office, he weaponized the Department of Justice to come after Trump when he said he was running for president again. And all of these things that they tried to pin on Trump and planted evidence and all these other things, that was all, weaponized, or what we call lawfare, using the power of the government, federal government, to come against your political opposition, which Hugo Chavez did, which Putin did, which different, dictators have done in the past. We have seen this happen even in France, when Macron, I believe, lost to Marine Le Pen, but didn't like the results. So therefore, he wanted to use lawfare against her recently, which hasn't been reported on here much, but that recently happened to Marie Le Pen. So I hope, she's doing okay. The thing is that, you give pardons to others in your family. Okay, put Hunter aside. Put that aside. You give pardons to your family here. You give pardons here to General Mark Milley, the one who I told you did that treasonous act, to Dr. Fauci, who hasn't been charged of any crime or anything, but a lot of stuff, I believe, by the information we know to be on record, is worthy of criminal investigation. He pardons all the members of the January 6th Select Committee. This is Biden's final pardons out the door, including Liz Cheney and others. Liz Cheney, who is a rhino, Republican in name only is what they call them, and along with other Democrats. And this isn't about Democrat and Republican. This is just about how the way they handle things. They've handled files. Files are missing. Things are not turned up correctly. There's a lot of things that have been done incorrectly and mishandled incorrectly. And this is one reason why I believe Biden has pardoned them. Because why would you pardon the January 6th Select Committee just because they asked questions? No, there was things that was done, and then you hear that term over here, the Biden family members, all his brothers and sister and others in the family. That's just you don't see listed. They get pardon already, like preemptive pardon. In other words, anything from some date in the past, even going forward, you can't come after them about this. And in a Wall Street Journal article, which I don't really read Wall Street Journal, but I was just reading some of it because I saw that, and I was looking at some other bunches of information from every angle, everything, wanting to see what everybody had to say, and they all said, talking about these pardons, and see the reason why they use that term. Or those are on the conservative side, right side, whatever you want to call them, Republicans, and just some who are neutral, some who are part of the Green Party, not even know a party affiliation, those who just see what's going on. Let me just say that. And they're saying they use the terms Biden crime family. Well, a lot of stuff that people wrote, like you have a book by Alex Morrow, Breaking Biden, Exposing the Hidden Forces and Secret Money Machine Behind Joe Biden, his family, and his administration. Different things like this dealing with, the whole issues at hand, and then the Wuhan cover-up and terrifying bioweapons race, which Fauci and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was a Democrat before he even went independent. But what happened is that he got stifled or stiff-armed by the Democrats because Robert F. Kennedy wasn't the type of Democrat that they wanted. The Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he was the more of a old school type, JFK-esque type Democrat, not this new branded type Democrat. With these views that are different of a different degree or on even a different hemisphere from what JFK Jr. was. They didn't want that. No. They didn't want somebody as a Democrat questioning Big Pharma. They didn't want someone, who had a lot of common sense policies like JFK Jr. RFK Jr. RFK Jr. They didn't want that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who wrote those books, The Wuhan Cover-Up and Terrifying Bioarms Race. Now notice, when this whole COVID thing started, they used this to stiff-arm Trump and make him look bad. And so, Fauci said at Georgetown. He was saying how I think in in either 2015 or 2016, he was talking about coming up pretty soon, a year from the time he made the statement, that there would be a coming virus. And I have it wrote down, but he said there will be a virus coming. So how can you predict a virus coming unless it's already planned? And so, see, a lot of this stuff was weaponized. Now, I know a lot of you may have not even heard the story about the viruses that they found, the CDC and the FBI, and I think maybe the FDA, but I know for sure it was the CDC and FBI, found some Chinese biolabs in California, and they found AIDS, they found all kind of different human viruses, they found created, weaponized viruses, biolab viruses, all kinds of different, this flu, that flu, all kind of stuff made and created. And then the story was soon blown over, after that. So, you have all of these things that are out, you have information, and man, it goes into depth and in detail, and it's well researched. But then you have, even Klaus Schwab, who said that COVID-19 was who hates Trump in his book. He was saying, and other world leaders, even Biden and Justin Trudeau, who was the prime minister over Canada, who just recently who's put in his resignation, I think goes into full effect in March. He was saying in this book that how you'll be you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, and how when this whole COVID thing launched in 2020, that by 2030, it was going to be a whole different type of world, pretty much to say, so to speak. So when you have a lot of the information, like video, when Joe Biden was saying on video, live on camera, he was talking about how he was over in some, I can't remember if it was some side meetings. I can't remember if it was to one of the big old gatherings that they had of the G20 or something like that. But this is when he was VP, and it was during Barack's second term. And he said openly how a prosecutor was going after Hunter. And he said that he threatened the government to get this prosecutor off of his son, because his son was on the board of Burisma. And, not only that, they was receiving all kind of money from, China to do these other deals and all this other stuff. And you wonder, man, how did Joe Biden come into $30 million through all these different foreign countries? And so anyways, he had this prosecutor over there in the Ukraine who was after him. And he said, if you don't call your boy off, pretty much, so to speak, then you're not going to get this $1 billion. And they said, well, you can't do that. And he said, well, watch. So in so many words, paraphrase. And then he said this, quote, I quote, well, son of a B, right? So in other words, hey, that guy just vanished. There's no more prosecutor. So you have different things like that, and you have these people who know this stuff, who documents this stuff. They put it in the book, and then a lot of people can still make the excuse, well, that's just somebody writing their own opinion and view. But then you see him give pardons to his family members. It goes into detail about the deals with his brother and all this stuff, all these different things, and these money deals and these companies they had set up to receive all these millions of dollars in. So now when you do something like that, and when they talk about all these files that went missing from the J6 Select Committee and what, all this other stuff has happened, then you make yourself look bad. And you do look guilty now, because they haven't even been arrested or prosecuted or anything. Remember Cynthia McKinney? Democrat. She was a really good Democrat, a good representative. She served a long time, former U.S. Congresswoman, and even later on went to the Green Party. But she was a Democrat for many years. And she wrote this book, When China Sneezes. Again, there's no room for her. That's a Democrat now. For all my Democratic friends out there. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Democrat, who also later on went independent because, he said that he didn't leave the Democratic Party. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard. The Democratic Party left me. There was no room for them in this new Democratic Party because their views were more to the left instead of staying centered. Kind of like stay more centered like a Stephen A. Smith, who also says he's independent. But anyways, people like this who just want the truth, like a Cynthia A. McKinney or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and others who write this information, who does good research, there's no room for them at the table. So when you see stuff like this that is put out, and then later on you see these last minute pardons, I mean, pretty much that's the admission of guilt. But Joe Biden says, no, I just don't want him to retaliate. Well, let me tell you something. If you use the full weaponization of the government to come against, your political enemies, which Hugo Chavez done and even others have done recently in couple of South American countries, because they didn't like the results. Then what happened? They retaliate, and so that's the difference. There's a young lady, black lady, who Trump's given a pardon to, I cannot think of her name. She was praying, black lady, young black lady, at all these different abortion clinics, just praying. And she was arrested by Joe Biden's Department of Justice, prosecuted by them because she was obstructing, whatever. In other words, they didn't like what she was doing. They didn't like her ministering to these women who needed help, or young ladies who was trying to get help, and praying in front of these abortion clinics. The same thing what they did with the Biden administration, going against that one Catholic gentleman and coming in guns blaze. The FBI pointed on him, his family, his kids, arrested him, was going to give him 11 years because of what he's done, and Catholic guy, and other things they done when, targeting soccer moms and all these other things, and Trump said, all that's going to be over with. Enough's enough. And so, this pardon pretty much shows an admission of guilt. But Biden says, no, I just don't want him to target them because of X, Y, and Z. Well, I don't think so. A lot of times people, whether you do it as a favor for somebody, you can say, oh, well, look at the January 6th, what they done and all the people they just released here recently on day one. Well, if you look into that too, a lot of people that was arrested, some of them, like Stuart Rhodes, I believe, who was head of Oath Keepers, and the other gentleman who was head of the Proud Boys, they weren't even there. And they got arrested and prosecuted and got all these years. They weren't even there. A black gentleman who was an actor in Hollywood, not real well known, but he plays on one of these smaller shows or something. He wasn't even there at the Capitol, but he was there in D.C. for different January 6th events, and he gets arrested. And there was a lot of cases like that. And they were just going after people who wasn't, even nonviolent. And if you look at the footage on the video, the police let them in, and they were just walking into the Capitol. And it was such a fight. Oh, no, you can't see that footage. You can't see. Really? But you said this was the greatest attack since 9/11. But you can't allow transparency and to show us all the 40,000 plus hours of footage because people want to keep that concealed. I hope Trump lets that out and exposes that. What they have not destroyed. And if they have, then whoever's responsible for that should be prosecuted. There's a lot of things that has happened in this last administration that's criminal, that they should be responsible for the way they handle things, that people should, whoever it may be, is going to have to answer, not because of revenge, but justice has to be served. And when you commit a crime, you got to pay for it. Has nothing to do with revenge. If it's a crime, it's a crime. And so, all those pardoning people, who's for what? Why are you pardoning them? They haven't been charged for nothing. That shows an admission of guilt.